Hi guys, welcome back to Bike Speeds. One of the most common questions I get asked in the shop is when should I get my bike serviced? So today I'm going to discuss that with you. We're going out for a 6 AM ride here on the east coast of the UK with a beautiful sunrise, and I hope you enjoy this ride. I have a couple of schools of thought on how often should you get a bike serviced, and I think it actually depends on the riding you're doing. Most of you who are tuning into this channel are pretty serious about your riding, and that takes a slightly more serious approach. So let's go right through the scale. Your commuters, your leisure bikes, those I always say to people to get serviced basically when something goes wrong. So if the brakes are not quite working as they should, or if the gears are not working quite as they should, or you've got bearing noise, an issue with the pedal, any of those kind of problems, something loose, bring it in to get that done, but get it serviced at the same time, and that will keep that bike in full fettle. That might be 6 monthly, yearly, 2 yearly. That will depend on your mileage, the surfaces you're riding on, and that's when to get that bike serviced, is when something goes wrong with it. And then when you're talking about road bikes, mountain bikes, hobby and serious biking, then you need to be a bit more on top of your maintenance. These bikes tend to be an awful lot more valuable, have an awful lot more money invested in them. You don't want them failing on a race, so you need to have a fairly good service regime in place. So with those bikes, you want to be checking the chain wear with the chain checker. We sell those on our website. We'll pop the link to those in the description below. But you want to be checking your chain regularly. Chains wear an awful lot quicker than you would sometimes want them to. But with that wear, as soon as you let that go too far, you're wearing out the rest of the drivetrain. Before you know it, the bike's worn out. All because you didn't change the chain. A chain checker is worth its weight in gold. Right, coming to a stop junction now. So there are very few of these in this area, but I'll follow the highway code and stop at that junction, not just come straight out. Every 6 to 12 months is a good time scale for a service on these kind of bikes. And if you're using the bike competitively, you want to be servicing that bike, I always think around 4 to 5 weeks out, just when you're on the taper. Because if I spot anything as I'm servicing it and I need to order a part, most parts come overnight, but occasionally they don't, and occasionally you can have a delay that can quite easily run a service into the next week, which if you're 4 weeks out of an event, you could then be looking at being 3 weeks out. Then you need to get a ride in on that bike to make sure that there's no teething issues. It's very, very rare to have teething issues, but you don't want to jeopardize an A race through poor preparation. So you want to be riding the bike a week or two out to make sure it's okay and that everything's as it should be and that you're comfortable with it. Make any minor changes you need to, any setup changes, make sure they're all dialed in before your A race. I love this bit of road at sunrise. I've got the sun coming up behind me, I've got the moon just across in the sky there, so I've got the sun and the moon. A little bit of low clouding, but nothing looking like it's going to give me any trouble, and beautiful blue sky. Because we're on the coast, you often get a cloud line, whereas clouds are moving off and on the sea, they accumulate and go. But this really is the time of year for me. We're just tailing on the end of summer, just heading into autumn. The autumn winter miles, that's the ones that sort out the men from the boys with road biking. They're what make next year's season. This riding now, end of August, right through to January, February, is what's going to make your next season. So we'll just find somewhere to stop, and I'll show you a few things you can do with your bike to check its condition and decide whether it's worth servicing at that point. We'll just find a little opening here on this road. This will work. So here we have our own Cannondale. This one has been serviced, but to talk you through, you want to just run through your bike. First of all, feel the headset bearings. They should be silent. If you've got any noises there at all, it's a sign the bearings are worn, and you need to address that. Otherwise you'll find the steering on the bike will start to tram. You'll veer off and you'll be constantly steering and constantly correcting because the bike won't be flowing nicely. Check your tyres. If you turbo train, you'll get a flat spot on the rear tyre across the top. That's a sign that you've worn out the rubber. If it goes flat, you want those a nice shape, a nice formed even shape. You may need new tyres. Check your brake blocks down here. Make sure that they still have plenty of meat on them and that they're pulling nice and central to the wheel and not moving the wheel over one way or the other. And indeed that once you've pulled that brake, that the wheel spins nicely afterwards. If the wheel doesn't spin nicely, could be a sign your brakes need adjusting and sorting out. Obviously go through your gears, make sure that everything's flowing nicely. But the one thing that I really try and stamp home, and it can save you a fortune, is all about the wear on your chain. So I do have a chain checker in my pocket, as if by magic. So you want to put your chain checker into your chain. This is a pretty new chain, and you can see that's not dropping in at all. So that's a good sign. This chain is as new, and both sides on the 0.75 and the 1%, it's not dropping in at all. If this drops in, even to this sort of point, it's time to change your chain. If it falls flat, your chain is worn out. You need to change it. The reason you need to change it is the distance between the rollers expands, and then it will wear the teeth on your cassette and your chain ring, and eventually it will shark the teeth off. So these teeth will become sharked, they will become pointed, they start to have a wear pattern that's uneven, and you wear your drivetrain out. So your chain is, for what they cost, it's so important to keep on top of your chain, because otherwise you start to wear out the rest of your drivetrain, and that is not a good thing. So make sure that your drivetrain is not worn, make sure your chain is all okay, make sure you haven't got any cables that are frayed. Again, these are all things that can be addressed in a service. And then with your rear wheel, it's very prone for the bearings in the rear wheel to wear out. So spin the wheel both ways, make sure you haven't got any sounds of the bearings in there, making noises, gravelly noises. And then the other thing you can do is rock your cassette. There's always a little bit of movement in these free hubs, although this one's actually very good. This wheel's not a bad wheel really. So rock the cassette. Again, you'll feel if there's a lot of rocking motion in there, it could be your hub needs rebuilding or new bearings in there. So they're all little subtle things you can do. I mean, how long has it took me just to talk through this? Not long at all. That you can check the wear. It's always worth looking at your bike more methodically to make sure that it's not worn and that it needs a service. So servicing is all about wear really on bikes. They wear out very, very quickly, and you need to keep on top of that wear to keep the bike nice and to keep it rolling nice so that you enjoy it and it enjoys you. So let's get this back out on the road and carry on with our ride. So that's just a few of my thoughts on servicing. I hope you've enjoyed this little vlog ride. We'll be back on it soon. I'm going to carry on my ride now. Please do subscribe to the channel. Drop this video a like and maybe your comments and thoughts on your own servicing. Do hit the notification bell. All these things help us along the way. And we'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.